is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Game Informer Show, a weekly podcast covering the video game industry. Join us every Thursday for a discussion about the latest gaming news, reviews, and exclusive reveals alongside Game Informer staff and special guests from around the industry. I'm one of your hosts this week, Alex Van Aken, and today I'm joined by Kyle Hilliard. How you doing, Kyle?
Hello. I was just sending a message. I promise I was paying attention.
All right.
I wasn't maintaining eye contact.
We'll be watching you this show. We've all got our eyes on you, so you better be on your best behavior.
I'm here, 100%.
Okay, Marcus Stewart, how are you?
Hey, update from last week's show. He did it. Cody, he finished the story. It's a new era.
Thank God. I did see the headlines. That was pretty cool. I watched like the last 2 minutes of WrestleMania. I was like, hell yeah, nice.
Made me cry.
Oh, wow.
It's actually a genuinely emotional ending. Yeah, it is. All the good guy wrestlers came out. His family came out. He gives the belt to his mom. His mom's crying. Everyone's crying. The announcers are crying. It's like everyone. The building's probably crying. The building itself, not just the people in it, just the building.
Yeah.
Just crying.
Is that how buildings work?
It's the drainage system, yeah.
Oh, is that
gutters?
That's what they call it.
The sprinklers were going off.
You don't say that when you see your house, when you see it's raining outside, and you're like, the sky is crying?
He didn't hear you. He had his headphones off.
Oh, I didn't know that was directed at me. I was just adjusting my headphones.
I wasn't directed at it.
First, he's on his phone at the start of the recording.
I would never
working
do that. I would.
And
never.
then now he doesn't even have his headphones on.
Hold on, I gotta delete all these emails about other Twitch channels going live. It's very important.
Yes. And rounding out the show this week, we've got our online content director, Brian Shea. How you doing, Brian?
I'm doing great. It was a cover reveal week, which, is a lot of work leading up to that.
Yeah.
So it feels so good to have it out in the open. People can go check out our newest issue now.
Yeah. It is Star Wars Outlaws. Of course, you know that if you clicked on this episode. Brian and I flew out to Malmo, Sweden, to Massive Entertainment. Same place we went for our Avatar Frontiers of Pandora cover story, where Marcus and I went a few months ago. And we went hands-on with Star Wars Outlaws. We interviewed several key lead developers on the game. And came away with a lot of info, personal impressions about our time playing the game, and we're gonna dive into it today. I think Brian's gonna lead that discussion for us. He wrote the cover story, of course. We've got a suite of online stories, videos, all of that. If you want to keep up with that easily, you can go to GameInformer.com/Star Wars Outlaws. Brian, do you want to kick off the conversation? Let's talk about Star Wars.
Yeah, so first things first, I got there a little bit before Alex, and Alex got there a lot before his luggage. So that was a fun way to kick off the...
My luggage did not arrive while I was in Sweden.
No.
I picked up my luggage from the airport as I was checking into my departing flight. So I wore the same outfit for four days in a row, 5 days if you want to count the next day where I got on a train from New York to Boston to go to PAX. So it was an experience.
Left, they were like, there was a lot of chit chat of like, these lazy Americans just couldn't even change his clothes.
No, I made it abundantly clear that I was walking around like red Crocs half the time because those are my plain shoes.
Yes.
Luckily I had another pair of sneakers in my carry-on, but I was literally wearing this outfit, which is like my casual, comfortable outfit. Yeah, it was this outfit exactly. It has been washed since then. And it was just me wearing this 4 days. I think I switched the color of my hat out once. Because in the color of my shoes.
On their toes.
Yeah.
I was like, how did it feel to be a cartoon character for like 4 days?
That's all they know me as, I guess. I probably wore this outfit at least one day when Marcus and I were there last time. So like, oh, this guy maybe he's like one of those like tech bros who has the same outfit that he wears every day.
Yeah.
Millionaire.
Yeah. But that was not fun. You reminded me, Brian, I needed to check in with Scandinavian Airlines to see if they've emailed me back about my case number.
When they emailed you about your luggage coming back, did they say somehow your luggage is returned?
Say that again?
I'm not making that joke again. I'm sorry. It's gone.
Star Wars Outlaws. Now that we referenced one of the
Oh
most
my,
infamous
oh my
lines.
God! I have an update. I literally have an update on the baggage situation.
Well,
on
don't keep
behalf
us waiting.
on behalf of Scandinavian Airlines, I would like to sincerely apologize for the mishandling of your baggage and the
I would, like the
inconvenience
CEO
this has
personally?
caused. We have reviewed the attached receipts. I have transferred the equivalent of $6 to your bank account. The transfer should be visible in your bank account within 5 to 7 days. What? $6?
They're missing a zero. Right?
Wait, I'm still stuck
I
on
swear
the,
to God, I'm not making this up.
I'm still stuck on the
$6.
like this is like the head of the CEO of Scandinavian Airlines digging through his pocket. Like, I got $6 in here, man. You want this?
What
I
can we
guess.
give this guy? What can we give this guy? Well, I got
Oh,
$6 on me.
That is ridiculous.
When
That's
my baggage was lost in 2019 for Gamescom, it was like 3 days late. I think they reimbursed me like every single piece of clothing that I had to buy while I was out there, which was like $280.
Yeah,
That
email
is
them back.
wild. Okay.
I would email them back. And
I'm saying $6 is not sufficient for.
Yeah, say I don't talk for anything less than $7.
That's ridiculous. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, usually
All right.
European airlines are a lot better about that. But anyway, Star Wars Outlaws.
Yeah.
Probably why you're listening.
So Star Wars Outlaws is the next game from the team within Massive Entertainment that made the Division games. And ultimately what they wanted to do after meeting with Lucasfilm Games was they wanted to make the ultimate scoundrel experience. They said that they looked at like the tabletop RPGs that have existed within Star Wars, and the thing that they most wanted to do was they were looking at like Jedi and spies and operatives and different archetypes that exist within those tabletop RPGs. And they settled on the scoundrel archetype because there hasn't been like a modern version of that recently. So like, God, what is the last scoundrel Star Wars game? Was it like Shadow of the Empire on N64?
It's been a while.
I mean, there were
Yeah.
some attempts that were canceled. Like, wasn't Amy Hennig's canceled game a Scoundrels game?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, Dash Rendar, right? Like the only
Dash Rendar was on Shadows of the Empire. Yeah.
I guess maybe Kyle Katarn, or is that how you say his name? He like started as a scoundrel, probably.
Cal
became a
Kestis?
Jedi. No, not Cal Kestis. Kyle Katarn from like the old like Doom inspired shooter.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Dark Forces. Yeah,
Hey, didn't that just get a remaster?
it did.
Yeah.
Okay. Play that now on your modern console. But so Star Wars Outlaws, Massive Entertainment worked with Lucasfilm Games. They really like to hammer that home, that this was all done like in close collaboration with Lucasfilm Games. And they, they designed new characters, new locations, a whole bunch of stuff in collaboration with the owners of Star Wars. And the result is a game that I am extremely excited for. We were in Massive for a work day and a half. And that first day, it was just kind of like these conversations with the developers and learning about the various pillars of the game and like how they took like care to keep the authenticity, like even using like virtual camera lenses that are basically like approximations of the exact camera lenses that they used when they were shooting the original trilogy, because the game itself takes place in the space between The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. So they actually took the care to try and capture the digital spaces of this game using similar like technology that they did in the real world shooting of the movies. So that was really interesting. And they tried to follow the same core tenets of what it means to like design a Star Wars character or a Star Wars like location, with like, having it be like the one thing they said was like the 3-second rule, which is like how long it takes you once you see it to like register in your brain what you're seeing at like 3 seconds or less to see something that's like alien and completely like somewhat familiar but not quite familiar enough to be like, oh, that's like a car. It's like, no, it can take you up to 3 seconds to recognize what you're seeing on your screen. And so they tried to follow that rule.
Okay,
And-
so they want it. Like, you have 3 seconds basically to understand what you're looking at.
Correct.
Basically. Okay.
So that was like a core tenet of Star Wars design. I guess going back to like Ralph McQuarrie, who did a lot of like the character and ship design of the original trilogy. So they followed a lot of that. They worked closely with Lucasfilm Games. They made the first day we were talking about the core tenets and the pillars and everything, and then we got to watch the developers play, and then we got to play for about an hour to 90 minutes of gameplay. So that was our first day. And then our second day was just all like interviews, just kind of me throwing questions at developers and getting them answers back. We'll have some video footage.
That's how interviews work.
Well, sometimes, yeah, I guess it does.
It's wild when they're silent and they don't answer.
Well, I've had a couple of those. Where...
I mean, yeah, I was gonna say I've had some of those. I've thrown some questions out there, and it's a lot of. Well, let me check on that one for you.
So that was our kind of schedule, and you know, I think Alex and I both came away pretty positive about this game. We what they're doing is ambitious. It really is like systems stacked on top of systems, and I guess just kind of making sure that there are like various elements at play that are adapting and changing based on your actions at any given moment. The big one is the reputation system. So you play as Kay Vess, who is kind of like this thief or pickpocket turned thief, and then she gets a bounty on her head from a kind of a powerful player in the criminal underworld, and in order to clear herself of that bounty, she needs to take on like kind of like the ultimate heist. And in order to do that, she needs to build up rapport within the criminal underworld. So you're interacting with these 4 syndicates, which I don't know if there are going to be more that are announced down the road, but the 4 that we got were the Hutt Cartel, Crimson Dawn, the Ashiga Clan, and the Pike Syndicate. So those are the 4 syndicates that you're working with, and then they all have this kind of spectrum that you can see. And through that, you take on jobs and you can make choices. Like there was one time where like in our demo, we got like this piece of intel as part of this thing. There's Alex's notes. Yes. We got this piece of intel as like a side effect of completing this mission. And when Kay goes to she's like, oh, who would pay for this information? She's like, oh, well, I bet the leader of the Pike Syndicate would pay for this information. And then you meet with the person who hired you, and they're like, oh, I'm actually with Crimson Dawn. And you have a moment there that you're like, oh, do I want to give this to Pike Syndicate, or do I want to hand it over to Crimson Dawn? And based on who you choose, your reputation will go up with them. So like they'll be like, oh, okay, well, we can trust this person more. And based on your reputation, like they'll let you into more areas. So like for Crimson Dawn, because my reputation was higher, I could like just walk into their territory because they were familiar with me and I was on good terms with them. Whereas like Pike Syndicate, if I tried to walk into their territory, they would kick me out. And then, you know, there was another time with Pike Syndicate where I was trying to steal the file that I was talking about before. And I had to try to like sneak in, and the first part of getting in there was like, okay, if they catch you, they will throw you out. So there was actually no guns or anything. You could do stealth takedowns, but there were no guns as like an option, or blasters as an option to getting in there. Then once you get past that first layer, you're in like a highly secure area. So like you could actually shoot and like choose if you wanted to do stealth or kind of gunslinging. And once you're in there, though, if they see you, because you're in like this highly secure area, they're in like shoot to kill mode. They're not in like, oh, well, we're going to catch you and just take you back, escort you back to the entrance of our territory. It's like, no, we're going to blast you if we see you.
And you can go back to like that stealth state if you evade them. It's hard because they like, it almost seems like monster claws at some point. I don't think they said it is, but I think they said it's not a monster closet, but there's a lot of forces that come at you. And so you kind of have to be like pretty nimble and smart about your pathing to get away, and kind of, they'll still be on alert, but like they won't be actively chasing you. So
there's a blue silhouette that appears, like it happens in some other stealth games as well, where it shows like your last known location. I think Assassin's Creed
is a big one for that.
Yeah. So it'll do that. So like you can know where they're going to look before they kind of fan out to look for you. But like, yeah, like I was trying to sneak past them, and like you could do the thing where like you look through your binoculars and mark enemies and everything, and then try to sneak past, and it just went downhill very quickly for me. And then I didn't disable an alarm, so then like that happened. I know it sounds like the way we're describing that it's like a Far Cry game, but it feels very distinct from that.
And on that point, sorry, Kyle, can we go back to your thought in a second? Is that all right?
I'll allow it.
Okay. All right. On that note, Brian, it, and I don't mean this in like, I don't mean this as like a backhanded compliment, right? I don't want it to come off across that way, like, but it does not feel like a Ubisoft open world game to me.
Mm-hmm.
It feels.
I asked them if there are towers that you climb to clear out the map, and they said no.
Yeah, it's a fog of war that you slowly uncover by exploring.
Which makes sense for that studio because Avatar was the same way. Like that one was also pretty atypical of what we like know as like the typical Ubisoft open world game.
Yeah, I would say this one felt even less to an extent than even Avatar for me. I kind of, I feel like they're doing a good job because when I was playing it, it just felt like I was playing a really good Star Wars game, and I wasn't thinking about like who developed it. It feels authentic, and like obviously this has been crafted by a studio known for creating The Division and a lot of games, but it feels unique in its own right, and it really did feel like, oh, this is just like the next Star Wars game I'm playing. It feels really good, having a blast, and I was not thinking about, are there towers or that kind of thing. I even think like, of course it's like guided, like there are objectives and waypoints and that kind of thing, but there are sections where like you need to like be investigating and like look out for what you're looking for, and not just like go point to point. Like there are puzzles to solve and pathing challenges to overcome. It feels really good.
And in talking with the creative director in particular, I mean, I think we talked to 6 or 7 different spokespeople, and talking with the creative director in particular, the cities that are within these planets. So there's like several planets that they told us about, like Kijimi, Tatooine, and then Toshara is the new moon that they created in collaboration with Lucasfilm Games. And it's like kind of like inspired by the African savannah, but then the city itself, Miragana, is just kind of like a bustling city in the middle of like kind of a desertish landscape.
Yeah, it all is like nestled inside of this giant like rock bluff above it. Mm-hmm. It's like really striking. Big POI obviously for you to look at, but a lot of it, like, you're underground for most of it. It feels like it's kind of like dingy, like Star Wars, like city, like this is where like the syndicate is. This is where smugglers are. This is where all the gray area people are, and it reflects that, and it feels that area just feels so Star Wars to me, Brian. I think they nailed it.
Well, what I like about it is, so first of all, the thing that I really liked is that like the creative director Julian was like very intentional about like, if you open up the map on this city, it's not that big. It's actually pretty compact, but it is so dense with stuff. And that's what we wanted to do, is like, we didn't want to like just make like a giant empty city. We wanted it to feel very dense and like almost claustrophobic at times. And then in every city in the game, very true to Star Wars, like if you've ever watched like Mandalorian or really any Star Wars movie, the place that you go to get like morally gray jobs is the cantina. So you go to the cantina, we went there in Miragana, and you meet like, oh, okay, well here's like a person who's telling me like I can do a job for like an anonymous client, and then they gave me that. And then like as I'm going to like do that job, there's another guy who's like, hey, you're looking for work, and then you can go over and like that's a side quest giver, like one of them's a main quest giver, there's a couple of other side quest NPCs. And it just seems like there are so many things that they've done right in terms of like establishing the feel of this being within a Star Wars galaxy. It's not just like, oh, well, this could have been an Assassin's Creed game, but we put a Star Wars skin on it. It's like, no, this feels definitively Star Wars. And I like that, like, once you leave the city, you can get on your speeder and then like cruise around, and there's like, you can see some of the syndicates, like some of the syndicates have territories out in the planet as well. So that's really cool. And like, if your reputation is good enough with the syndicates, like, they'll do everything from like let you into their territory to like giving you special stock in like their shops that they own, to like giving you discounts, and even all the way up to like, if you're in trouble with another syndicate and or like the Empire, they will jump in to try to help you. So like you could be like, oh, I have a really good reputation with the Pike Syndicate, and Crimson Dawn is chasing me for some reason because I upset them. If you go through like Pike Syndicate territory, the Pikes might jump in and actually help you fight them and like help you get away.
And the point of the game is very much you are going to be constantly ebbing and flowing with your standing with these factions. Like it's not like you get, you know, all the way up with the Pikes and then you're just good. It's like there will be moments where you'll probably want to betray their trust. Your reputation will lower again, but it'll go up with another. And that's kind of like throughout the game. Yeah, it's cool. On the note of the speeder bike, Brian, I feel like the speeder bike was really, really fun to control. There's like there's a really cool drifting kind of mechanic that it's got to it. Like I was kind of sitting there, I was burning time that I could have been going and exploring stuff, and I was just sitting there doing like essentially donuts on the speeder bike because it just felt really good to control. It's like there's a right amount of
does she have a dedicated vehicle, or are you just grabbing whatever vehicle?
Yes, that is. So the speeder is a summonable, and so I think the lore is like it's a droid that transforms into a speeder bike or something. It's got some kind of you can whistle to it or whatever, and you know,
she does have her own ship though. The Trailblazer is what it's called.
Yeah. And the speeder bike is based off of, they said, a 1960s Swedish dirt bike called the Husqvarna. If people want to look it up, it's Husqvarna ? The Husqvarna.
Is the question mark part of it?
That's part of it.
Of course. Yeah, that's stylized.
I'm looking this thing up.
Yeah, but it feels really good. You get a lot of speed. There's like jumps and stuff you can take it on, and like naturally built into the environment, as well as more like obvious, oh, this is supposed to be a ramp, you know. But
and as you're out there, you actually like I didn't get to do a whole lot of exploration because I had to get through the demo, but there like you could hear like radio chatter as it's like, oh well, here's like an imperial like drop happening. Like you could theoretically go and like interrupt that and take the supplies for yourself. So it seems like there's quite a bit to do out in the world, even though at first glance it almost looks a little bit desolate, like the moon of Tashara. But it seems like there is going to be quite a bit of stuff going on out there. And going back to Alex's point about the reputation system, about how it is kind of ebbing and flowing, they talked about how, like, cause I was like, oh, well, what if like you really get on like one of like the Syndicate's bad sides? Like, what if you were just like, okay, well, I have just screwed over the Pike Syndicate so many times. Like, would they stop hiring you? And they basically were like, no, because like in this world, like the underworld will always kind of look at like, all right, well, what can you do for me? So it's more of like a transactional relationship. So like there's almost an understanding that like everybody's in it for themselves. So even though like I in my infiltration of the Pike Syndicate territory ended up like killing 45 of their people, like they're like, okay, yeah, we'll still give you a job, but you do have to like,
it's just like really forgiving and cool.
Yeah, whatever's good for business, I guess.
I mean, that's basically what they said. And then like,
I like that. Yeah,
if there are, but like as you get higher reputations, they will give you, I think, some higher stake jobs, if I'm not mistaken. And then also like, you know, it's nice that like there is a separate system for the Empire. So there's the reputation system, which is kind of like your standing with the different criminal organizations, but there's a wanted system for the Empire because they're the ones with like the true power in the galaxy at this point in time.
Yeah.
So basically it's just like if you mess with the Empire or like screw them over or break some rules or something, like I think in the first trailer they showed like you went to like a meeting with an Imperial officer and kind of like basically spat in their face with like what the request they had, and then that ended up like raising your wanted level, if I'm not remembering that incorrectly. And then like they chase you, and like based on your wanted level they'll send like higher grade of enemies after you. And there are ways that like you can reduce your wanted level, like bribing like a corrupt officer or something like that to reduce your wanted level. And there's also like an in-game event that you can do that they won't let us talk about, but it was there are several ways that you can reduce your wanted level. But I do like that it operates on a different spectrum than like the reputation system, with like kind of the criminal underworld. But the whole thing is like, all right, the Empire is in power, but they're so occupied with kind of like chasing down this scrappy rebellion in this period of Star Wars that like they're kind of turning a blind eye to these criminal organizations, and that's why they're thriving so much, and that's where you're kind of making this your playground.
What's the over-under on a Darth Vader appearance?
I mean, I asked about like, all right, well, are like well-known characters appearing in this game? And like we've seen a few of them, right? Like we saw in the story trailer that they released today, we saw Han Solo frozen in carbonite.
Right.
We know Jabba the Hutt is in it. Lady Kira, who was Emilia Clarke's character in Solo, a Star Wars story. She's not playing Emilia Clarke in this one, but she is in the game. Darth Vader, I feel like other characters, my money's actually on Leia, personally, because, you know, she's plotting to try to get Han Solo out, like based on the beginning of Return of the Jedi. So that's my money. I mean, they would not, very obviously, they would not confirm what my theories, how hot or cold I was with my theories. But I mean, maybe Lando, who knows? Like, but Darth Vader, I don't know. I feel like we've done that twice super well in recent Star Wars games.
When has that ever stopped Lucasfilm? It's like if you set a Star Wars story in the time that Darth Vader is a thing, it's like sooner or later, even if it's like super on the edge, it's just K-Vess hiding behind a box, and she peeks around the corner, and Darth Vader's just like talking to a stormtrooper.
I mean,
and then that's like all the screen time he gets, just to be like, yeah, he's here. Just
it would be very cool as like to have K-Vess, because there is, you know, obviously stealth is a big part of this game. Like, instead of being like, okay, I'm a Jedi and I can fight Darth Vader, it's like you have to just hide and make your way out of this area as best you can without him tearing you to pieces. I think that would actually be a cool twist on it. Obviously, I have
like
no idea.
Horror.
Yeah, like almost like Alien Isolation.
It's like him snapping people's necks like he did in Obi-Wan.
But at the same time, you know, Vader can kind of sense presences, so I don't know if that would really work.
I want Dash Rendar to show up just to canonize Shadows of the Empire, because like technically Shadows of the Empire is not canon anymore. It got ejected when Disney took over, but like, you know, it takes place at the same time. They could probably overlap. You know, let's see Dash Rendar show up.
Hey, anything can overlap in Star Wars. We've seen.
And so wait, is that the character you would want to canonize the most out of like the extended universe stuff? Like, because for me it would be Starkiller from the Force Unleashed. I always want to say Force Awakens, Force Unleashed. I would love to have Starkiller. I mean, they have Sam Witwer playing him, who is an actual actor, so it's not like it would be too crazy to be like, hey, you're playing him in live action now.
Genuinely though, Shadows of the Empire is like my most played Star Wars video game. I've played that game like dozens of times. I read the book when I was young. I really like Shadows of the Empire a lot. Genuinely, I'm not being ironic.
I think it was just like the Hoth sequence that I liked, and then everything else I kind of hated.
As a kid. I love that whole ass game. It doesn't hold up. Don't play it now, but if you played it religiously like I did as a child, and you know every issue at that game, I can breeze through that game pretty quickly.
I think the Star Wars game I played the most as a kid was probably that really unhinged PlayStation 1 Episode 1 game where you could rampage through an entire town and like kill everybody as Obi-Wan, and
that's like, all I did. And then the people, like the guards, are like, killer, and they chase you around town. Oh, good times.
I'm just now remembering I'm remembering the speeder bike chase on Tatooine, right? And Shadow of the Empire, is that what I'm remembering?
Well, I mean, Return of the Jedi has. Oh, are you talking about like through? Yeah. Tatooine. Yeah. That's like an awesome level that I would play over and over and over. That actually is the thing that I most wanted from a Star Wars game since then, is like another chance to just ride a speeder.
Well, you're in luck.
You do get to do in Jedi Survivor. Quite like there's a really cool sequence, but it's very much on rails. It's very much just like a set piece. But I love the idea of here I can jump on a speeder and just drive. Like that sounds awesome.
Honestly, that's one of my favorite things about the Destiny games, because their bikes are basically speeder equivalents. Yeah.
And then also one thing that we didn't get to see in our demo or play, but we saw a video of it, was kind of like you get into your Trailblazer, with not the car, but the ship that she
It's
has.
just a Chevy Trailblazer.
Car from Earth.
She gets into her ship, the Trailblazer, and you can fly out into orbit. And a lot of the planets and moons actually have like an orbital range around them. This is how they did it, where like instead of just giving free space flight, they established like an orbit around each, or not each. I guess they said that some, like there's at least one that does not have it, but they have orbits around them. And then there's like stuff you can do out there. You can even like land at space stations and like take part in dogfights. And like,
do you know if it, like you said, you didn't really get to see this closely, but do you know if it feels like you just get in the ship and go to another planet without hitting a screen?
No, so when you reach the edge of the orbit, it goes into a hyperspace.
Okay.
And so you're basically jumping from one orbit of a planet to another. That's how they kind of patched it together.
It's not No Man's Sky.
Yeah.
Okay. What I want, I don't necessarily need No Man's Sky, but what I want to avoid is Starfield. I don't want to just go into like pick a menu item and go. You know, even if it's like a false cutscene or something, I would like to feel like I'm getting in a ship and I just go to another.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's what Destiny does when you go planet to planet.
Yeah,
it's just a cutscene, and then you're just there. So it sounds like it's that.
Well, that's what I liked about Jedi Survivor and Jedi Fallen Order is like when you get in the ship, it's very clearly like a fast travel thing, right?
Yeah.
Right.
But you see them in the cockpit and you can see like the exterior of the ship, like through the glass, you can see like, oh, this is the town that you were just in, going away, and then like going up into space, and then you go into hyperspace, and that's always
you
a really
never leave
cool
Cal's side. I feel like they did it really well in that game.
They did.
Like even if it's loading and even if you're not actually flying, it still feels like you're Cal. You got on a ship, you flew to another planet.
That game is so good, man.
Yeah. And that's I mean,
Both those games are
not to
very good.
derail it, but that's the big thing that lost me with Starfield. It's like I'm just like hitting menus here, man.
That's the thing about like, I'm really excited for this because like, yes, it's a different studio than Respawn, obviously, but like, look at how good the the Jedi Fallen Order, Jedi Survivor are both. Like, they're so good.
Yeah.
This
absolutely.
one feels so loaded with potential, and it seems like because Lucasfilm Games is so heavily involved, like I'm hoping that means that like. And obviously, like, it's not like the Division games are like bad by any stretch. Like, they're not like my cup of tea typically, just because I'm not like the biggest live service game guy. But
Sure.
like, what I played of them when they first came out were really fun. And by a lot of accounts, Destiny Division 2 is also like a really, really well liked game.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know. I have a lot of hope for this. And what we played, Alex, I think I can speak for you that like we both really enjoyed it. And we both kind of came away being like, man, I can't wait to like see how all these pieces fit together in like the final game, and like how extreme you can manipulate the reputation system, and how much you can like annoy the Empire and get like a wanted mark on you, and like just like the different interactions that you have and the exploration. Like they called the speeder like the freedom machine at one point, because they're like, yeah, like, you know, you can get on there, you can just go wherever on this planet, and that's like a really cool concept, especially like given your desire to have that exact concept, Kyle.
I think that's what people drive those pickup trucks with the big American flag sticking out of it.
Freedom
They
machine.
call those freedom machines too.
Yeah.
Freedom Machine.
I'm pretty sure there's a freedom machine at our local derby, monster truck rallies. The freedom machine. I don't know. I don't know if Minnesota has monster truck rallies.
It sounds like
I hope it does.
Helldivers. It sounds like a Helldivers 2 vehicle.
That actually does, yeah. Freedom
Yeah.
Machine. I bet that's like the drop down you can pick, you know, when you assign your shipment.
Yeah.
Freedom Machine.
So on top of our cover story, they also put out a story trailer, which does a pretty good job of like getting you hyped for like the table setting that they are doing with this story. But we also got a release date, which is August 30th.
That's pretty quick. Like that, honestly, like sooner than I expected.
Yeah. 'Cause when was this announced? What, 2 years ago?
Well, it was first like announced that they were working on something, but it was like the real reveal was at SGF last year, so Summer Game Fest.
Was it just last year? Man, it
Yeah.
feels like it was.
That was when the
back.
Ubisoft Forward did. That's where they did like kind of the reveal trailer, and then they did like an extended gameplay sequence. That was last June. So
Man, I think I am conflating the original announcement that they were working on Star Wars with the reveal. That's probably
But yeah, like this, I mean, a lot of these different parts that we've talked about seem like they're coming together in a really cool way. And like, it's interesting because the way that they describe Kay and her companion Nyx, as they kind of describe them as like the dual protagonist. And that's something we haven't touched on, is like you can use Nyx, who's like this little like cat looking thing, and it's a new creature called a Merkle, and it comes Merkle, Steve Merkle, and
does it always is it like saying like, did I do that in alien language every time it helps?
Every time it takes down an enemy for you. So you can use Nyx to go pick up items that are off in the distance. You can use him to go and like hit buttons that they're out of reach, or like open up shutters. Like there was one time where like you're going through a ventilation shaft and like it's like, all right, well, how do I turn off this fan that will chop me to pieces if I try to walk through it? And you could tell Nyx to go like open up the shutter of the control panel, and then you could blast it with your blaster. And then in stealth sections you can direct Nyx to like go distract the enemy, and like you can do it to like he'll run up to them and like be all cute, like kind of like jumping up on its hind legs, and they're like, all right, get out of here. And then like while they're doing that, you can go up and do a quiet takedown. Or if like it's not that sensitive that like you have to be super quiet, you can have Nyx like almost like squirrel like attack, like crawl up the leg of the enemy and like jump on their head and like basically just like try to like attack them, and then you can just run up and like clothesline them basically. So it's not like as sensitive. If it's just like one guy, like that's usually the way I went. But like if there's like a guy you're trying not to alert, like walking a little bit in front of him, like kind of like the quieter way is the way to go there. So you have to kind of be context aware of that as well. But Nyx comes in very handy as well. It's a new species, another one that they created. So like the ones that they talked about creating in collaboration with Lucasfilm were like Toshara and its capital city, and then the Trailblazer, Kay, and Nyx, and then also the Ashika clan is a new syndicate that they created as well. So lots of stuff that's all new and joining the Star Wars universe now.
There needs to be a Nyx and BD1 like adorable platformer or something. like their buddies that hang out, you know. It's
like a Disney Plus short.
Yeah, or honestly, something like that.
Yes.
You know?
Nyx is very cute.
A straight to cable Ewok movie, you know, starring BD1 and Nyx, you know.
Yeah. Somebody make that YouTube death battle. That's what we all really want. Who's the cutest?
Well, cool. That is our Star Wars cover story. If you want a physical copy of the cover story to read in your hands, you can go to subscribe.gameinformer.com and you can get a magazine subscription for $19.91. It's 1991, the year we were founded. That'll get you 10 issues a year and digital access to the magazine. It's the best way to support us. If you enjoy this show, you enjoy all the free coverage we give you throughout the week and throughout the year. $19.91 a year, 10 issues, or you can lock in for 2 years. You'll get 20 issues for the current sale price of $34.99. And I should say $19.91 is a sale price, but you know, we're honoring that for a while here. But we think it's a great price to get in on you know, the world's #1, the largest gaming magazine out there.
Throw your ones up. Acknowledge.
By the way,
this is a wrestling thing.
I applied for TikTok verification, and they said like describe your audience, and I put people who read the #1 video game magazine in the world, and they declined our verification.
That's an awful reason, Kyle. You should have consulted with social media.
I apply all the time and tried different things. They're not.
That's not like a multiple choice question. That's like a fill out a box and actually tell us why, like your audience. Okay, like someone actually reads that.
You should just say gamers.
They got back to me very quickly with a no, so I'm thinking nobody reads that. But
say worldwide gamers on the next
not
one.
Enough. You didn't put enough buzzwords in there.
Yeah.
Sound off in the comments what Kyle should say in the TikTok verification form.
Hey, I could try it every 30 days. I'll go through them all.
Well, let's get into Kyle, your Fallout
That's me.
TV show, Amazon Prime show, spoiler-free review.
Wait, Alex. You had it right there. He said, give us the Fallout from Fallout.
Give us the Fallout from Fallout? Well, none of the actors have said anything terribly offensive in interviews yet, so there hasn't been any fallout of the Fallout show that I'm aware of, anyway.
By the way, I had a chance to talk with the actors at the Game Awards. There was like a round table, and you can read my feature that resulted from that on GameInformer.com now. but all of them are a delight. I mean, especially Walton Goggins. Like, he was just
Yeah,
the
he's a
man.
highlight, yeah.
He
He's
seems
great.
like a cool guy.
Was my favorite character from the show. By the way, I've watched the whole show, and to sort of, I mean, the big question is it good? Yeah, it's good. I quite liked the show. I don't know if I would point to it as like my favorite video game adaptation.
Which is?
Well, that's the thing. It's certainly in that conversation. It might be.
Doesn't The Last of
Dang.
Us?
Well, the thing about The Last of Us, and this is like, I stopped watching after like the second episode, not because I thought it was bad or anything, but I was like, I've seen this. I know what this is, and I recognize that it's not 1-to-1. I know that it took, episode 3. Obviously, I've heard is amazing, and I've actually been thinking often. It's like I should just go watch episode 3.
You should.
Like if I'm, I should do that. But that's the thing about The Last of Us that kind of turned me away is like I've played this game twice, and it was a grueling experience like both times, or 3 times really. PS4, PS3, PS5. I didn't like that story is tough, but it's really well done, and The Last of Us show is like another version of that. The thing that I really like about Fallout is like it has direct connections to the world of Fallout. But it's not like, I don't know, this is a completely original story. These are completely original characters. It feels like it could just take place around or near a game because the Fallout world is so huge. Like literally, like anything can be happening at any time. And I like that. Like, it's like, I want sort of, when it's done well, obviously it's been done poorly, but when it's done well, I like something being an extension of something I'm already familiar with,
Yeah.
Like, I'm somewhat familiar with Fallout. Show me some new stuff in that world. And where Last of Us was like, I'm familiar with Last of Us and Joel and Ellie. Oh, I'm just seeing that again. I would have rather seen more like episode 3 style stuff. And I say that as someone who
Totally agree.
episode 3,
Yeah.
So I quite like it. It might be my favorite video game adaptation. I'd have to like run down the list and think about it, and like look at movies and stuff like that. I'm still a big proponent for Werewolves Within, which
That is a really good movie.
It's a fantastic horror comedy based on the Ubisoft game. It's so loosely tied to the game. It has nothing to do with the video game, but it's a really great movie. If you like a good mystery, like murder comedy,
Yeah.
Werewolves Within, absolutely.
How many episodes is Fallout on Prime?
There are 8.
8? Okay.
And as far as I know, when you're listening to this episode, either
They should be
tonight-
live. Yeah.
Yeah, or maybe last night. Like
They moved it up a day.
Yes, yeah. All 8 episodes are available. And yeah, it's good. And I'm not even a big Fallout fan. Like I like the games fine. I've never finished a Fallout game. I've always just kind of dabbled. But there's a lot of stuff that just really works for me with the sort of Jonathan Nolan, Lisa Joy of it all. They created the show. Jonathan Nolan directed a bunch of the episodes. I think he did the first 3. I could be wrong about that because I do tend to track directors when I watch shows, and his name started disappearing after the 3rd episode, I think.
He lost interest.
in watching the credits, yeah. But it is if I really love the first season of Westworld a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I think that show drops off pretty hard. I never watched the final season. But I love the first season of Westworld. That's like apex TV stuff for me. And there's like tonally a lot of Westworld stuff in Fallout. It's like a very violent, dangerous world. It's science fiction. There's like time shenanigans, right? You're seeing multiple timelines happen simultaneously and cross-cutting between them, which is a skill he learned from his brother, Christopher Nolan. The man loves to cross-cut to great effect. I'm a big fan of that. And there's also Walton Goggins plays a sort of really knowledgeable, violent cowboy. And it's like, yeah, this guy really reminds me of the Man in Black a lot. He's like, he knows what he's doing in this world, and he also knows a lot beyond what's happening in the world as well, which is fun to have that character.
It's also very interesting that they got, he's probably the biggest star in the show.
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah.
Like, but you just don't see his face because he's like so coated in like prosthetics and like makeup and everything.
Well,
Right, 'cause he plays a ghoul.
Yeah.
You see his face a lot.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I have not watched the show. I've only seen the stills and like trailers.
I mean, it's like 60-40. You know,
Okay.
60% ghoul, 40% actual Walton Goggins
Goggins.
face. But the other
Well,
thing
good. Something to look forward to.
yeah, right. The other thing that just like clicks for me is like I this is another like comparing it to Last of Us thing, is I do get overwhelmed by just dourness and like you gotta give me some jokes here. Like I can't. I get really bummed. I don't watch a lot of drama in general because I like sitcoms are like my favorite sort of version of television. If I'm gonna watch television, I want to watch a sitcom. And the thing that Fallout does is it's not a sitcom, but what they did is they like the majority of the cast are comedic actors or sometimes just straight up comedians. Like the sort of the fourth lead of the show, this guy Johnny Pemberton. Is like my favorite character. Like he's a huge highlight for me. He was in movies like 21 Jump Street, and he was also this character Bo in Superstore. I don't know if you guys have watched.
Oh, I know him.
He's such a great character in Superstore, and he's not like a joke machine, right? He's not like Chandler Bing sitting there making sarcastic comments about how the world is so terrible. But he's just like a comedic actor who's there playing a straight ahead character who will just occasionally have these lines that kill me. Like he's just like, it's just this acknowledgement of how crazy this world is. And there's a scene like late, maybe like this penultimate episode or something, where it's just his character talking with like a radio DJ. And it's just the funniest, weirdest thing that just totally clicks for me. It's the combination of like weird, violent sci-fi and consistent humor that like really just ended up working for me in a way that I was a little skeptical going in. Like I was like, I like Jonathan Nolan a lot. I'm kind of on board with whatever he's gonna do, and Lisa Joy as well, just because I loved Westworld so much. But then the Fallout side of it, I was like, yeah, we'll see. I'm not like, I don't really know that world that well. And yeah, ultimately loved it. Like was one of those shows after the 8th episode. My wife is a big Fallout fan, really loved it because she was like, oh, that's from this, you know, without being overbearing, right? It's all very subtle, and it doesn't lean too much into that. It's not winking at you. It's like, hey, Pit Boy, right? You guys know Pit Boy. You know?
It's like, is there a sequence where
the
like Ella Pernell goes into vats and is like picking body parts to shoot, and they're like, hey, remember this from the games?
And that's the other thing. There is like a slow motion shootout with Walton Goggins' character early on that feels a little vatsy, but they're like, okay, we got that out of the way. Like we're done. Like the rest of the action's going to be pretty straightforward, which I appreciate. Yeah,
nice.
I lost my train of thought. Oh, we were talking about how referential it is and stuff, and how it's subtle in that way. But I don't know. I lost my train of thought, but it's a good show. Oh, I am all over the place, you guys. I'm sorry. I'm very excited to talk about Fallout. The thing was, after we finished the 8th episode, which is like the sign of a good show to me, is like the next night when it was like time to watch TV, we were like, I miss Fallout. Like I almost want to go back and just rewatch some of those episodes. I don't really, like I miss it, you know?
Well, you know, there are a few games that you could go and exist in that universe if you would like to continue.
So my wife restarted Fallout 4, this game that came out 10 years ago,
9
and
years,
hit
yeah.
a bug in the opening hour where she had to delete her save and start over again.
Oh, it's
Like, and I was just like-
the glitch where he doesn't search the house
Yes.
properly. Yeah.
And I was
Sure,
like,
well-
I can't believe this.
She had a rad bug.
So that's just like, I was like, oh my god,
The true Bethesda experience.
Yeah, I'm
I
pretty
know.
sure there's like the early quest, whatever the guy's name. He's like, you're looking for your missing family in a house.
Yeah, the robot.
Yeah, and he won't like search the house or something, and it won't progress.
Oh wow.
So Alex, you're saying this is a known bug that they should have fixed?
Yeah, I'm pretty
You're looking
sure.
at-
They're
yeah.
fixing it for the remaster, I'm sure.
If I'm thinking of the right one, I never had it.
That sounds right. That sounds.
Yeah, I never hit that either.
Yeah.
It's
But,
weird. So is Fallout the TV show the most polished Fallout product? Yeah?
I mean, yes. I didn't see any bugs. I mean, I saw literal bugs. I saw rad roaches, but I
They should have had a character T-posing in the back just as a little reference.
That would be
someone falls through
amazing.
the floor.
Just
Oh,
mid
actually-
Oh my
conversation.
god, that would be so
There
funny,
is-
Marcus.
There is a scene where someone surprisingly falls like through the floor, and I wonder if that was a joke that I didn't clock at the time. Of like,
God.
this is.
I
I mean, it depends how they fell through the floor.
I mean, Todd Howard was the executive producer on the show. I highly doubt he's like, yeah, that's funny. Let's make fun of our developers.
Yeah, true.
You gotta have a good. You gotta be able to do that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But,
Don't be too
yeah,
self-serious.
I hope you guys watch it. I'm excited to see what
Oh,
people
I am.
think about it. Like I was talking with Marcus with the Twisted Metal show, which you liked, Marcus, and you were also kind of like hesitant right before it came out, and you're like, do other people like this too, or am I like on an island here? I guess we'll find out. And at the time of recording, that's where I kind of am with Fallout. Like at the time of this recording, my review will go live tomorrow morning, which is very positive. And I wonder if I'm just going to be on an island and everyone's going to be like, I actually hate this. This is terrible.
Well,
Yeah,
it's already renewed for a second season, so like I feel like they have
Well,
some
an
confidence.
asterisk. Yeah.
And also,
They got offered a lot of money to do a second season, but they haven't committed to accepting that money, which is like,
Well, or like they got offered money to film their second season in a certain location. So it's not like it's going to happen either way. Just where are they going to do it?
I would be grateful for a second season. I am very hopeful for a second season.
and I mean, it's not like this is like some surprise of like, oh well, all the other stuff these showrunners have done have been garbage. It's like, no, it's Jonathan Nolan, Lisa Joy.
Yeah. We know the first season will be good at the very
Yeah, I was going to say. So season
God.
2 is where it goes off the cliff, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Hey,
I hope they give
Ryan,
us like Fallout Old Vegas or some like departure.
Vegas.
Give it to a totally different director and crew, and just
Yeah.
like let them make it.
Yeah, they have to shoot different versions of the same episode depending on which faction the character sides with.
Yeah, yeah.
By the way, just maybe a final thought here. It is so funny to me that I'm watching this show, which is about nuclear fallout, like literally, and also because it's like based in a sort of 50s era, right? It's like retro future 50s. That's when the bombs go off and Fallout. Socialism is like a major topic, and like what it means to be a socialist in that
Keep
era.
your politics out of my shows, damn it.
And but the funny thing is like I'm watching this and I'm like, this is like, and it's so funny that Christopher Nolan went on this like weird other direction with Oppenheimer to also discuss nuclear fallout and socialism in an era of the past and how we sort of were, I think, arguably like incorrectly interpreting it at the time. And it's funny that, you know, Jonathan Nolan went on the like, I'm going to adapt this fun video game, and Christopher Nolan's like, I'm going to adapt the real life story of this man. It's funny that they both went in that direction.
Basically, you're saying Jonathan Nolan created the sequel to Christopher Nolan's movie.
That's
Yes, Fallout is the sequel.
I
to
I have no interest in Oppenheimer, but I am very excited for Fallout.
yeah.
I will say,
It's
as somebody
funnier. It is
who-
funnier than Oppenheimer.
As somebody who
hope.
was a little hesitant on Oppenheimer, I adored that movie.
Oh, it's
I finally
fantastic.
saw it
It's a
like
great
last
movie.
week, and
Yeah.
it's one of the best movies I've
incredible.
seen in a long time.
Yeah.
Great movie.
Big surprise! We are singing the praises of Oppenheimer, universal
The
winner of Best
the
Picture.
year, Yeah.
Tell me when they put Fallout in 70 millimeter.
I mean,
That goes it.
it would be cool.
Yeah,
But anyway,
I,
good
re- I,
show.
re- I
Enjoyed
really
it.
want to see it. It's out this week, 8 episodes. Kyle, I need to hook up on the Amazon press account. I don't know. We got to talk off air. I got some shows I want to watch.
I don't know.
I was gonna say, is that such a thing? A press?
I don't think so.
I don't know.
They sent me
Exist,
just like here you can just watch Fallout, and
Oh.
my email address was plastered on the screen as we were watching, which is in
Oh,
my
yeah,
review.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
like, it's weird that they chose to put my email address on the screen. It just feels like I don't know
Helping
why
you
they did
remember.
Well, cool. Let's move on, Kyle. We're gonna keep you in the spotlight for a second.
that. More Kyle.
More Kyle. The Rogue Prince of Persia. What the hell is this?
Yeah,
I've heard rumblings of this, but I am very unfamiliar.
Yeah, there was a little leak a couple days ago that was just sort of like, just basically like Rogue Prince of Persia, like those 4 words, you know, sort of were floating around the internet. But what this thing is, and I got to see it and play it, which is cool.
Whoa.
It's a roguelite Prince of Persia game, 2D platformer Prince of Persia roguelite from the creators of Dead Cells.
Oh, that's
yeah.
everything I want.
And it is a standalone game because like Marcus did the NGT with me, and we were sort of looking at the footage, and that was a question you had because like initially you're like, oh, like the Castlevania DLC for Dead Cells. It's like no. This is a completely standalone game with similar mechanics to Dead Cells, but also a lot of unique mechanics that do not exist in Dead Cells. It also has a completely different look, but it's a 2D roguelike game. And it's cool. I quite liked what I played a lot. You can do wall running, which is cool, and like levels are designed in such a way where you can like run vertically and horizontally along walls to sort of platform. And and the Prince of Persia of it all is that when you die, you go back in time and start over, which is like a very Prince of Persia idea. Like that's like a big element of Sands of Time. So they sort of took that franchise, Prince of Persia, you know, a game known for really good platforming and fun sort of platforming puzzles, and also has a lot of, you know, timey-wimey shenanigans in it, and sort of applied that fiction to a roguelike, and it feels like it's a really good fit. Like it's cool. And if you know Dead Cells or like Dead Cells, this is definitely like, maybe you like Dead Cells but don't really care about Prince of Persia, like that's a whole other avenue to play this. I mean, this feels like a new 2D roguelike platformer from the makers of Dead Cells, which is a big deal.
That's cool. So are you playing the prince in this?
Yes, you are the prince, who does not have a name. He did in The Lost Crown for the first time. He was Sargon, but now he's back.
Well, no, the Sargon was not the prince.
Prince Hassan was
right. The protagonist was
Sargon.
Sargon. Yeah.
Sorry.
But yeah, now it's
didn't mean to jump on you, Kyle.
He's just the prince again. Yeah, and he has this. The idea is like he's had this time travel ability his whole life. Like he has this like necklace that will let him sort of go back in time if he dies. And then like what that has done to him, sort of just character development wise, has just made him like willing to take risks all the time, which is why he's become such a good acrobat and a fighter, is because he just throws himself into danger, because it's like, who cares? If I die, I'll just loop back around. And I guess it was that sort of attitude that sort of inspired the Huns to come invade his town. And now the game is built around like, I have to sort of undo this mess that I've caused. Is like,
was he advertising this? That he had this ability, like, hey, look what I got, everyone, hey.
I mean, it sounds like there's a lot of hubris to this guy. So
yeah, the worst winner imaginable.
Yeah, but yeah, it feels good. You know, the platforming feels good. The combat feels familiar and good to Dead Cells. The way you upgrade weapons and swap out weapons feels a lot like Dead Cells. I like what I played a lot. Yeah.
How are the environments laid out? Is it similar to like Dead Cells, where you're kind of, okay, we're in the castle ramparts, we're in this like lake town area, but everything still kind of has that like underground feel to it, even when you're in those areas. Like, does that make sense? Do you know what I'm trying to get at? Like, you see the edges, like the black edges of the level, like the tile sets and stuff. Is it a similar look here? Is it, what's it like?
It definitely feels more open, right? Like even the first area, the starting area that I played through, is outdoors. It's like a Persian town. Okay. And then a couple other places I went, like there were some that felt underground, but it doesn't feel like a prison in the same way. It doesn't feel as claustrophobic. And I think it's the running along walls that helps, because you can move around so freely. Like when I say running along walls, right? If there's a 2D surface, right, you can run along the side of it like you would in a lot of games, Yeah. But if there is a wall in the sort of background behind the prince, you can run on that wall too.
Interesting. Okay.
We have a new gameplay today so you can see it in practice if I'm not doing a good job explaining it. But like if you think about it, instead of a double jump, like the prince can basically jump and then like run on the wall behind him.
Yeah, he kind of like scampers up like a squirrel.
Yeah, which is very like I spoke to Ubisoft about it, or I'm sorry, about the Evil Empire about it, who's the developer, and they said that like that was crucial, like for him to have wall running, sort of expanded wall running is a staple of Prince of Persia these days.
Very excited that we have fit 2 references to squirrels when talking about gameplay in this episode.
Yeah, right. That's a good point.
I like the art direction of the game a lot. Like I think I said this in the NGT, but it's got a very like, if you turn Prince of Persia into a 2010s era Cartoon Network show, it would look like this.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's got kind of like it reminds me of for people that remember the show OKKO, Let's Be Heroes, a little bit of that. Like kind of like almost like a charming comic book-esque sort of look to it.
A little more angular though. Like OKKO and Adventure Time have very rounded characters, and this kind of like veers a little closer to anime, in that you have like faces have shapes and corners and stuff.
Yeah, maybe like a Steven Universe, a little closer to that or something.
Yeah,
in that ballpark.
Gems, but it looks good, and it's really colorful, and the music's good. It's one of those things where it's like I just finished Lost Crown, and like this is very surprising, that this is coming out so quickly after that. But at the same time, I'm like, yeah, this is such a good fit. I'm totally open to more Prince of Persia.
I missed it. When is the release date?
It's going into early access in May.
May. Okay.
So they don't have a 1.0 release yet. And they said, I asked if like early access would let you play, see the narrative to its conclusion, which it will not. It'll be like Act 1, which is like how Dead Cells did it, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
So.
I like to think that, I believe things happen in threes. So between Lost Crown and this, it's like, so we're going to hear about the Sands of Time remake any day now?
I mean, supposedly
what are we going to get first? The Sands of Time remake or the Knights of the Old Republic remake?
Oh, Sands of
Time.
I think Sands of Time.
Sands of Time.
Hey, man, we've been hearing about both of them for a while now.
Yeah,
and with very little to show.
Or the final Final Fantasy VII remake.
At least we know that's happening. That's not trouble.
We legitimately might get the third part of Final Fantasy VII remake trilogy before either of those games.
That's true. Actually, they seem on track. I know it was a long joke that I was like, oh my god, this is going to take them forever. And then Rebirth came out in a reasonable amount of time, and we're like, oh, okay. It turns out they know what they're doing.
And they've also said in interviews that this going to Final Fantasy VII now, that a lot of the stuff that they did for the development of Rebirth is going to transfer over to whatever the third part is, so it could even be faster. Because the big thing with Rebirth was developing that giant world, developing the traversal mechanics and everything. So they already have that stuff in place. Now they just need to, put it all into action with some of the new stuff that's coming in this third part. So that legitimately might come out before Sands of Time or Knights of the Old Republic remake.
I mean, I wouldn't be. I mean, I think that might happen. Yeah.
But yeah, I'm really looking forward to the Rogue Prince of Persia. Is that what it's called?
Is there a colon? Like the Rogue colon? Okay.
Yeah. The Rogue.
It's a funky name, but it kind of works. Like I get it. Like that's almost, it's like the Friends episode naming, where every episode of Friends is called the one with blank. I mean, people are going to call it, the Rogue Prince of Persia, that one, right? That's what they're going to call it anyway.
Which I mean is how you would describe it. Like, oh, this is that rogue-like Prince of Persia. Remember that one?
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, cool. Yeah. Well, now it's my turn to talk, everybody. All right. I have been playing Yellow Taxi Goes Vroom. It is.
Does it though?
Oh, it goes vroom hard. Let me tell you.
Okay.
Yellow Taxi Goes Vroom is one of my favorite games I've played this year. Have not finished it, but I am having a ball with it. It is a predominantly a 3D platformer without a jump button.
Without a jump button?
Yeah. Does somebody have a question? I heard.
Sorry, I was just reacting as I put up the Steam page and the trailer started playing, and immediately I was like, okay.
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right.
Do the same thing.
So it is a 3D platformer, N64 era vibes. And it's got some crazy taxi DNA in it. I've been playing it. So the main mechanics are that you are this, essentially the setup of the game is there's a big oil company called Tosla that has come in and ruined everybody's life. And it's like slowly corrupting the towns and stuff. And you are this tiny little wound up toy car that doesn't rely on oil. So, you can come and save the day. And it's this very irreverent, comical, just like absurdist take on like Mario meets Crazy Taxi, I would say.
Well, there's a character. I'm looking at the screenshots.
His name's Morio.
Named Morio.
Yeah, yes. He's like your main guy.
His line of dialogue in his screenshot is, "Hello, it is me, your legally distinct Italian creator."
Yeah, it's the gameplay is so freaking good. So the way you kind of get around not having a jump button is very early on you get this dash ability. It's like you kind of wind yourself up even more and then you dash forward. And there is some depth to that because you can cancel out your dash and you can kind of double jump. You can kind of get one level higher if you cancel your dash and then hit dash again, and it kind of flips your car up in the air, and you can use that to get to certain ledges and places and like some of the harder collectibles. But there's plenty of objects in the environment that are like bounceable. And so you can go into like an umbrella and it'll pop you up, or you can find a fire hydrant. If you hit the fire hydrant, a beam of water will shoot up, the hydrant will kind of expel you upwards. But the most common way that you're using this wind-up mechanic is anytime you're on an incline, it will like, if you use the dash on the incline, it will like shoot you up into the air. And then you can kind of think about like in Mario Odyssey where like midair you can throw Cappy and like kind of bounce on him. Yeah. Okay. It's a similar feeling with the car because you get up to 2 dashes and then it starts recharging.
My favorite user review right now, there are, I believe, 7 user reviews. One just says, unwell game made for unwell people, parentheses, like me. Would recommend.
Yeah,
this looks cool.
I legitimately, like, unironically, like, I know this game is a lot of like very absurdist, ironic kind of internet humor to it. It is legitimately one of my favorite games I've played this year. I'm reading so fun.
The description, and I get all the way to the final word in it, and I was like on board until the final word, which is collectathons, which is immediately a turnoff.
That's a wink. That's a wink.
I would say so. The main way you collect it is a collectathon. It's not as strict as like you can get coins and stuff and buy like hats and stuff for your car to decorate your car with. The main thing you're after and what you're exploring the world for is like collecting these gears, which unlock new levels. I am also not a huge collectathon guy, Brian. But this, I think it strikes a really good balance in this game.
I mean, it looks like a blast. Like I'm watching the gameplay trailer on loop here, and it does look like a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's killer. So the developers are Panic Arcade, which is actually one of the names of the levels. And it's being published by those awesome guys. They're the people who published Monster Prom. And they published there's an upcoming game that I actually saw at Day of the Devs called Valley Peaks. They're publishing that game as well. And Monster Prom's and then Move or Die. Those are like the two that are like the most prominent, I think.
Okay, I think I played a little Move or Die.
Yeah. But like they haven't published many games, but they're publishing this one, and it's out now. It's coming out today as of our recording. And Steam only right now. If I had to review it, I'm not going to properly review it right now on the show for us, but like I think like an 8 or a 9 is probably where I would land, just on like probably a couple hours of gameplay. And I don't think it's like too terribly long of a game, but I've unlocked probably 4 or 5 worlds. And yeah, I'm having a blast. There's kind of like a hub area, and the hub area almost reminds me of the structure of New Donk City, where like there are tons of secrets to uncover and find within the hub.
Super Mario Odyssey for those.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah. And Odyssey is my favorite Mario, so the fact that I'm comparing this to that should be a really good sign to listen.
So was this your favorite Mario?
Definitely my favorite Mario. Yeah.
I mean, Odyssey is my favorite 3D Mario anyway. So I'm excited to check this out.
Yeah. I'm probably gonna buy it today.
And Mario Galaxy is my favorite, so I'm not gonna play this.
Oh, okay.
Right.
No. I think there are some challenging, if you're going for. There are certain collectibles you definitely don't have to go for, but if you want to go for them, like there is a decent amount of challenge to this game. Like you can fly off the level pretty easily so as you're dashing, if you hold accelerate, you'll dash further, or if you hit the brakes midair, you'll dash like slower. And so, you kind of sometimes you got to get used to it. You'll like overshoot, and but you respawn very quickly, and the checkpoints are pretty good. But if you're looking for like your next game to speedrun, this one has a built-in speedrun counter on it under the settings menu. And you can just have like a fully ready speedrun measurer clock set up within the game, which is really cool. And yeah, it's really good. Yellow Taxi Goes Vroom. I want to say it's on sale on Steam.
It is like $15 right now.
Yeah. There's like a 10% discount, launch discount. Highly recommend it.
Yeah, I'm gonna check it out.
Yeah, I want to hear your thoughts. But yeah, let's move on, Marcus, to you. You've been playing another big indie that people have been looking forward to. Botany Manor, right?
Yeah, man, what a complete like stark contrast between what we just talked about and what I'm about to talk about.
This one's called Green Plant Goes.
I don't know. What's a plant sound like?
I don't know if you guys have ever read this, but I remember reading some sort of plant study like years ago where scientists confirmed that plants scream when you like cut or eat them.
That's
like they make some sort of sound that's like very imperceptible.
Checkmate, vegans.
I hate that. I hate that.
Why did you tell us that?
I just wanted to share that horror with you. So next time you do anything outside, you just feel terrible.
Yeah, no matter what.
But yes, Botany Manor is a game I've also been looking forward to for a while. I really like puzzle games. And this is very much like a cozy puzzle game where it's set in 1890 Victorian era London, where you play as this botanist, Arabella Green, who lives in this like 16th century manor, and she's returning from like an absence, and the manor has fallen to like somewhat disrepair, and you're sort of trying to not only fix it, but primarily trying to figure out how to grow these like a collection of exotic plants to sort of complete her research book. So the game is like first person. You're wandering this elaborate like mansion and the surrounding grounds. It's got a very chill vibe. Like the art direction is very vibrant. It's a lot like The Witness in terms of like the color palette and just like those kind of like solid, like almost like primary colors. For anyone has seen The Witness, and a lot of like very ambient like soundscape with some like sparse melodies. Like it fits the vibe perfectly. Like you'll get like a sparse piano melody, but otherwise you're just hearing the sounds of nature. And the way you progress is that you're going through this mansion. There's like locked doors and there's all these puzzles, and they all revolve around trying to figure out how to grow a certain plant. So you'll find like a seed, and then they all start the same in terms of like you find a pot, put some dirt in, put your seed in, water it. But then from there, you have to figure out, okay, what are the conditions that this plant needs to be in to grow? And all the plants are like kind of like fantastical, where like the first one you find, it's just like, oh, okay, this plant only grows, it's from this region of the world and can only grow in this type of like temperature in terms of degrees. So like you're like in a little greenhouse, and you're using the environment to sort of piece together the information that you need to get it to grow, where you'll see a poster that has like, here's all the temperatures for like each species of plant based by like which region they're from. And then you'll find another note that your friend might have written that says, hey, that seed you found, we got it from here. And then you kind of take those pieces of information and connect the dots of like, oh, okay, now I know it's from Sicily, so I can go back to that other chart and see what the temperature in Sicily is. And then now I can put this plant next to this little vent and then turn like a little knob to the appropriate degrees. And then that will cause the flower to bloom. And then you can move on. So like, that's like the simplest example of it. And it gets a lot more elaborate. And a lot of this game is that like collecting clues and observing your environment. So like you'll find books, you'll find like letters and other just like visual objects, and a lot of it out of context seems like it's nothing, and not everything you pick up is like a direct clue to what you're doing. You do have to kind of like sort of like sparse a bit or parse through a bit of like, okay, this one seems related to what I'm trying to do, this one maybe not so much. And the book that you have, it keeps track of like how many clues you find, and then you sort of like it'll tell you like you have 5 clues that you need to find to figure out how to grow this plant, and then as you find clues, you can drag and drop them in there and fill it out. And then when you find all 5 appropriate clues, the game lets you know like, okay, you have everything you need. Now go figure out how it all makes sense. But you have everything. It's nice. The one thing I will say that I don't like about it is that the game does require a lot of running around back and forth as the mansion opens up, because at first you're running into a lot of locked doors, and then as you unlock them you find like some shortcuts back and forth, but it also makes the mansion just bigger, and you can't inspect the clues in the book. You have to go back to them if you don't remember what it was telling you. You're like, oh, what was that note again?
Yeah.
And you're like, oh crap, where was that? And it does tell you like the room that they're in, but it's such a big mansion. You're like, okay, it's in the orangery. Okay, the orangery is up here. Okay, I got to go back there just so I can read it again and be like, wait, did I understand that correctly?
It's like overly complicated to a certain degree. Or...
I mean, it's just more like, I would say overly complicated. It's more inconvenient. Like, it's not like you're collecting these clues in an inventory that you can just inspect anytime to just read it. It's like you have to physically go back to where it's situated, because you're not collecting anything. You just pick it up and you put it back down, basically. But the process of solving the plant puzzles is like, it is really fun. Like, I think that the like things are laid out in a way where as long as you kind of keep on like a certain train of thought, everything around you is kind of presented to you in a most somewhat linear fashion, where like, okay, I know everything I need is in this general area if I just poke around enough. And then once you find like the end point of like, okay, this is where I need to bring the plant, and this is the final destination for it, and now I have everything I need to initiate the sequence that makes this grow, whether it's like, oh, okay, this plant needs a certain substance beyond water. How do I make that substance? Let me go to the area that lets me create a liquid using fruits, and then working from there. Well, what fruits do I need? Well, there's a note here that gives you the...
Sounds like you're just describing a juicer.
I mean, it is a juicer. Yes, ultimately. It's like a Victorian era juicer. Okay. So it's like a weird, grindy, mashy thing.
Hell yeah.
But it's just like, you start to work backwards a bit of like, okay, well, this needs a certain amount of sugar. Well, how much sugar do all these apples are? I don't know. I found a chart that lists all the apple species that are in front of me and their sugar levels, and then sort of like doing the math from there of like, it needs to be a certain number. It's an enjoyable process. It's a very like, it's got enough challenge to where it's like I have found myself like really thinking about things and like rereading clues and going like, wait, I think this is something I didn't think was anything. Now I think I understand what this is actually telling me, because it's not, a lot of clues aren't like blatantly saying like, oh, you found this exact seed, here's a note that's just talking about this seed. Like, some of it's more just like tangentially related to the seed, and then you kind of have to do the leg work or the mental connection to go like, actually, this might be applying to this. Like, there was a puzzle where there was a flower that only blooms in like extreme heat, and the seed is so hard that you have to find a way to germinate the seed first. And you're like, well, how do I do that? And then you find a book talking about another type of plant or vegetable that's unrelated to yours, but is like similar in terms of like its need for heat. And then you kind of go like, well, if it works for that, will that work for what I have? I don't know. And you mess around a bit,
That's cool.
As I've gotten, so there's 5 chapters in the game. I'm like in the middle of chapter 3. Like, chapters usually have like, at least from what I've played so far, like 2 plants that you have to, I guess, solve basically, or grow before you move on to the next part of the story. And then you usually find a key that opens a room that you couldn't get into before, and you find more stuff. One of my fears is that in chapter 3 now is like, I have found like there's no real separation between the 2 plants, and so their clues are both of their batches or clues are just open to you. So there was a point where, as I was collecting clues related to the first plant, without realizing it, I progressed ahead and started collecting all the clues for the second plant. And then I started wondering like, wait, have I mixed up like which one batch of these clues apply to which plant? Because they're all like, there's no real gating there. It's just sort of like, if you keep going, you'll start getting the other stuff. And then I kind of had to work backwards and be like, okay, I know I have to sift these out, because like, there's no way this applies to this. So like, which one is which? Because there was even clues for the second plant that were in the area for the first plant, which I like to sort of mix it up. But there is that danger of like, it starts to get a little muddled, and you have to really start like filtering out what you need to pay attention for which plant.
Yeah.
And I'm curious if you can It doesn't seem like you can, but I was curious like if you could even sequence break the game or like just because I usually just do the next plant that's in front of me. I don't like skip ahead. So like I'm gonna do the next plant. I'm just gonna do the next one. But I was like, could I have done the next plant and just skip this one? But I'm up against a wall right now where I've hit a puzzle that is the first time I've been, I guess, truly stuck where I'm like, oh man, I don't know how to get into this room. Like there's like a door puzzle here that I'm trying to figure out, and I think I have everything I need, but I don't know. But overall, like I think it's cool. It's got a nice flow to it. I think the puzzle design is pretty good. I like the relaxing vibe to it, and even just the sort of like environmental storytelling. You'll find all these notes that sort of help flesh out Arabella as a person, where you're like reading like rejection letters from this botany university that wouldn't take her just because she's a woman, and she has it in her kindling pile for her fireplace, so she's like, oh, okay, she's gonna burn that. Like, I guess. Or like there was like one where like a love letter from some admirer that she clearly was just like, nah, I'm not interested, and it's like in a trash pile and stuff like that, and just like letters from her different friends being like, hey, we're going to the Alps, we missed you. Or it paints this picture of like she seems like a pretty independent person who's just really into her botany. But like also seems like very headstrong. It's kind of the vibe I'm getting from her. But yeah, I'm enjoying it so far. Like I'm excited to finish it. It doesn't seem like it's a long game unless they start really throwing more plants at you in the last 2 chapters. But I was blowing through it. Like I got to halfway through the game in one sitting because I was like, oh man, I like the flow of it. So I want to keep
like
going.
as a compliment, right? Like you were
complimentary,
in, right? That's cool.
Yeah, like I was like, I want to see through this, and it was a good, because I played this like late at night. It was like a good end of day the game. Just like I just want to unwind, which is maybe weird for some people. It's like you're solving puzzles, so you have to like think, but it's like that relaxing amount of stimulation, at least for me, I guess.
Sure, yeah.
It's like like I'm engaged, but I'm chilled out. Just chill out. Look at all these pretty trees and stuff.
I'm juicing flowers.
Yep. I just want to grow some flowers
with a Victorian era juicer grinder contraption.
Yeah, that's what she called it in her notes.
Wow.
She's like, and then parentheses, I need to come up with a better name for this.
Well, cool. The Botany Manor sounds really neat. It kind of the release kind of snuck up on me. So
yeah,
I'm
this is
excited
a Annapurna joint.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whitethorn Games, right, as well.
I was it them? I think actually because they've also been doing a lot of the PR for that.
Yeah, I don't know.
But Annapurna published it, and Balloon Studios is the developer.
Weird. Huh. Okay. Well, cool.
Yeah, so I don't know what that relationship is exactly. Oh, but sorry. No, you're right. Whitethorn published it, not Annapurna. I don't know why I had Annapurna.
It does give off Annapurna vibes.
Yeah, maybe that's why I feel like I might have. I don't know. And Whitethorn Games, not to take credit from them. They published it.
No, it's okay. We corrected it. Well, let's get into listener questions here. Before we do that, let's do some quick housekeeping. Of course, like I said at the top of the show, the best way to support this show is to get a print magazine subscription. Get 10 issues delivered to your door for $19.91 a year, or $34.99 for 2 years for 20 issues. That also gets you access to the digital magazine. Unfortunately, that is only for our American audience as of right now, but we are definitely taking notes. We see everybody else around the world who wants one, and we're putting that in our little suggestion box.
Our basket full of hopes.
We hope we can do it someday.
Yeah, we'd love to. Just a matter of logistics and all that kind of stuff. But
yeah, to get this thing off the ground, we just needed to kind of start smaller scale, and no promises, but we're hopeful that we'll be able to expand it in some way in the future. Yeah.
Of course, you can go and follow us on Twitch, twitch.tv/GameInformer, where we stream replay on Fridays at 2 p.m. Central. We usually also stream throughout the week. Typically Marcus or Kyle are doing that. Sometimes you might see my face on there. Of course, head over to youtube.com/GameInformer. That is the primary spot for all of our videos. That's where you'll find the Rogue Prince of Persia new gameplay today, as well as I just put out a video that I worked on with Brian We filmed it last summer. We interviewed Takashi Iizuka, the creative officer of Sonic Team. He's been working on Sonic games since Sonic 2. That's when he first joined Sega, but right before that game was shipping, and he helped test on that. And we kind of run through his career, and it ends up getting into a conversation on the Dreamcast. And Iizuka remembers the day the Dreamcast was announced that it was shutting down, and what that was like, those feelings. Get into a lot of interesting things for Sega and Sonic fans. So go check that out on the channel.
Just for a teaser of how in depth we got. At a certain point, I asked a question, and Takashi Iizuka goes, "How long is this interview?" Because that's a really specific question to ask.
Yeah. But it turned out well. It's about.
You said as long as it needs to be, and then locked the door behind you.
Yeah. Huge fan of that. They were. But yeah, it's about a 13-minute video, very highly edited. Very proud of it. I've been working on it for a while, so it's been getting good response as well. A lot of Sonic fans are apparently we uncovered some things that people have been curious about for years. So
nice, congrats, guys.
Yeah. Of course, go and rate us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, if you don't mind. And go. I know it's not on the Game Informer show. It's not on the Game Informer podcast network anymore. But Brian hosts All Things Nintendo as well here. Over on what? You're on.
We can't plug it. We're
done.
We
Shoot!
Can't be done.
Okay.
No, of course.
Cancel that, Matt. Edit that out. Go listen to All Things Nintendo if you want more Brian.
It should be the same feeds as it ever was. So if you're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever, it's all there. It's also now on my YouTube channel, which is just Brian Shea. You can find the video version. I finally conquered my demons of not being able to export a video without my computer crashing. So hopefully that continues, and I'll be able to keep doing that. Also, I set up a Patreon page for All Things Nintendo, but it is purely free. It's just kind of right now a place to congregate for if you're a listener of the show, and also submit questions there. And then there's a new email address. It's just brian@allthingsnintendo.com, which is a way you can get in touch with me. And I'm trying to do more and this help with a segue for you, Alex. I'm helping to do more listener questions.
Oh,
for
wow.
the podcast.
Yes, thank you, Brian. Let's get into listener questions. If you want to be part of the show, this is the part that you get to influence. You can email us podcast@gameinformer.com with the subject line Game Informer Show question, or hit us up on Discord, the official community Discord, which you get access to by subscribing to us one time on Twitch. And you can submit your questions there in the Game Informer Show channel. This week, we're starting off. Chain Whippin' on Discord asks, I love Star Wars and I love open world games, and Ubisoft makes a pretty decent open world game. For some reason, though, I can't find the hook in Outlaws. Can't put my finger on it. What makes this open world and this character so compelling to spend dozens of hours in this game? I only ask here because I haven't gotten my print magazine in the mail yet to read about it myself. Brian, do you want to take that one?
Sure. I mean, I think that, the authenticity of the Star Wars galaxy, if you love Star Wars, this feels distinctly Star Wars. But even if you're like, okay, well, there's other Star Wars games I can play, having a scoundrel character like Kay who doesn't have superpowers like a Jedi, or isn't like the world's greatest fighter pilot like you see in some other games. It's just, she's just using her cunning and her wits and her baked in skills that she develops as she goes. She's like you and me. We could be the stars of this game in terms of just the base skill set, and then also the manipulation of the reputation system. It just feels like there's going to be some substantial changes that could happen based on how you approach these rendezvous with the different criminal organizations. I think that there's a lot of really cool systems that are at play and at work in this game. But what about you, Alex?
Yeah, speaking about the world, towards the end of our demo, we unlocked a new attachment for one of our weapons, and we essentially took the speeder bike, and we're told like there is this like, I don't remember the exact details of the quest, but essentially there was like an item we needed to get from this almost like what looked like an outhouse, not quite, but like this kind of dilapidated shed, kind of
like an abandoned farmhouse almost.
Yeah, abandoned farmhouse, that's better. And so like you had to take your speeder bike out there, and you had to have this one specific like tool, and then there were like these targets that were kind of like sort of pseudo hidden, not all that hidden. Like if you look and pay attention, you'll see them. But you had to essentially shoot out like the security of this building to open up the door and get the item inside. And that was just out in the open world, right? Like I'm sure there's going to be more of those moments. This one was tied to a main story quest, probably because it's, you know, earlier in the game.
And it's also giving you that particular upgrade.
Yeah. A lot of the
like
stuff that we saw
almost
was scripted during our play because it was like the beginning of the game. But Julian, the creative director, said that a lot of the things that we saw will play out in unscripted ways, right? As you play the game. So,
I mean, there's a lot to like there, and like we mentioned in the start of this show when we were talking about Star Wars Outlaws and our cover story, like Ubisoft does make a really good open world game, and Star Wars Outlaws I'm extremely positive on so far from what we've seen and what we've heard and what we've played. But it doesn't feel like your typical Ubisoft open world game. And I mean, I think that's probably a good thing because there does seem to be a little bit of fatigue in that
I will say
that people have gotten used to.
I'm somebody who typically bounces off of those games, if I'm being honest.
Like Ubisoft
open world games, typically, yeah. Like I typically bounce off. And so I've kind of like, when they announced this game, it looked really good. I was really excited for it. And then I was like, oh, is this going to be for me? And then playing it, I think I'm coming away very excited and very optimistic. Like, I think I'm going to stick with this one. The emphasis on story, I think they're just doing it's very cinematic, right? We talked about like the lenses they're using and all that tech, but it just feels like they really have stepped up their quality in terms of storytelling from something like The Division, which had like good story missions. Like I really like those museum missions in The Division 2, but like I'm talking about like story presentation, it feels like a huge step up, and seeing, you know, the cutscenes and dialogue play out. And yeah, I'm just coming away like impressed, honestly, and optimistic. And that's from somebody who, you know, I even went on the Avatar cover trip and I bounced off of Avatar. Like you know, I'm not here to sell you a game. I'm just here to, you know, tell you about what we learned and share my impressions, my honest impressions. And yeah, I came away very impressed. It is now gonna be, granted, we'll probably get codes for the game, but even if I don't, like it's a day one for me. This is something that I would go out and want to check out myself. But
I'm just trying to think of like what other games, because like we really don't know a lot of the second half of this year, but like trying to think if there are any games that are on the calendar that I'm as excited for as I am Star Wars Outlaws right now. And obviously there's so much about the second half that we don't know, but
yeah,
I'm not an Elden Ring guy, so like the DLC is not gonna surpass this for me. But like, I think Star Wars
Paper
Outlaws,
Mario.
It's just a remaster. I mean,
Indiana,
I think
Indiana Jones.
I'm excited for Indiana Jones, but like I think that this is pretty easily above that.
Does Indiana Jones have a speeder where you can just drive off into the distance?
He does have a speedboat.
He has
a trailer.
Yeah. He has a whip that he can swing things with.
I do like a whip. No, yeah, I like to think about those kind of things. Like if you put Indiana Jones and Star Wars in front of me, like I'm going Star Wars in this.
Two Lucasfilm things.
Yeah,
yeah. Right.
But hey, Shane Whippen, if you want to wait and read our review, you know you don't.
Yeah, of course.
We are obviously going to have one, and it's going to be very honest and very informative. And if you want to wait for that, by all means. Like I'm definitely not somebody who, I don't pre-order games. I didn't even before I worked in press. I like to wait and see the sentiment and see what reviewers have to say. So I think if you're not convinced, you know, it's totally fair game.
And also Star Wars Outlaws or GameInformer.com/Star Wars Outlaws will have some extended coverage for you in the coming days and weeks. So keep your eyes there for more.
Absolutely. Thanks for writing in. J Herb on Discord asks, what's your favorite pizza topping of choice for the year 2024? And why is the pizza for you and me? Man. So I think J Herb, we're celebrating our ongoing, relation. I don't want to sell. J Herb, I see your name a lot. I think you're a nice person. I'm also not one to like sell people on like a parasocial relationship. We don't know each other, but I see your name a lot.
I was wondering where this was going.
And I think we're just gonna celebrate.
You guys are getting married? Is that what's
we're celebrating our friendship? I think our parasocial friendship. I think I would like to think
built on pizza.
Yeah, like this. We're like some people toast with champagne. We're toasting with pizza. I'd like to think J Herb. I see you a lot. I see you around a lot. I think if we ran into each other at a bar and you're like, hey, it's me, J Herb, and I'm like, oh, what's up, J Herb? I would let's order a pizza. Let's toast. And what would be on that pizza? It would be cheese. Because I think pizza is better when it's simple.
Sure.
I also need to not be yelling. My wife's in a job interview right now. I can't be yelling about pizza.
So you don't go beyond cheese? Is that just like?
I mean, I think the
pinnacle.
I think cheese pizza is the pinnacle. Like, granted, you could get fancy with the cheese.
You can't go wrong.
I'm not, and I'm not gonna.
It's the safety net.
If I'm depending on the place, I went to a spot in Madison, Wisconsin. I wish I could remember the name. And it reminded me my love for buffalo chicken pizza.
It can be very good as well.
See, my thing is like a cheese pizza tells me everything I need to know about the establishment, whether it's a Neapolitan pizza. And I mean, I love a margarita pizza, right? What is that? Cheese and basil. The sauce is the best part for me. So if it's got red sauce, it's got really nice cheese, it's got a good char on it, it's cooked right, the dough's nice, like that's perfection for me. There is a spot, I'll shout out Black Sheep Pizza in Minneapolis.
Yep.
I get the number 4. It's a ricotta meatball pizza that
I want one of those now.
is really good. Is really good.
That used to be the standard when we would celebrate an outgoing intern class at Game Informer. We would go and get the ricotta meatball pizzas.
Oh yeah, hell yeah.
Oh, did you have those, Marcus? Are you trying to remember?
Don't remember. Probably just don't remember. Yeah.
Marcus wasn't invited.
To a different chain though, so maybe you were part of that class, Marcus.
Yeah.
I respect the cheese pick, even though I don't think that's never. I mean, I don't want to say never because sometimes I will go that route. I'm a pepperoni mushroom guy.
Oh, I do love both of those things.
That's a good combo. Underrated combo in my opinion.
When I go to New York, I eat pizza like 3 times in a stretch of like 2 days. When I go to New York, I will usually do over the course of that majority pepperoni mushroom, but then I'll be sure to get at least 1 slice of cheese and 1 slice of margarita.
Can I change my answer?
Yeah, go for it.
Like a Sicilian pepperoni is usually
that's
just
a good one.
A banger.
Yeah, that's all right.
But then you get all the heartburn. I get less heartburn with just cheese.
Yeah, I don't really get heartburn unless
I've never really had heartburn.
It's only the Sicilian pepperoni that does it.
Yeah, bro.
It's so greasy.
I was like, what does heartburn feel like? 'Cause I remember watching those like
acid reflux
as a kid. I was like, and they were like, looked like they're having a heart attack, and I was like, oh my god, that looks painful.
It feels like something's like stuck in your upper chest almost.
Okay, it's like I've never had it.
Maybe I don't have it. Maybe I get acid reflux, which is different from heartburn.
3 out of 10.
I don't know.
Recommend.
Okay.
I would swap mushrooms for onions for what it's worth.
Really?
I'm not
interesting.
No.
I feel like you don't hear onion very often on a pizza, or like as someone's favorite.
Like a sautéed onion, that's just like heaven right there. You just throw that on anything. Put that.
Would you get a pizza with just cheese and onions?
Yeah, that'd be great. I love that.
Oh, okay. That's
Don't judge.
All right, Marcus, what's yours?
I mean, pepperoni's it's the ultimate. It's the best topping. It's the topping of 2024 and beyond. Everything else that goes on with pepperoni is like the supporting player to the pepperoni.
I also like to go extra pepperoni. You know, like have
Okay.
If I'm feeling spicy, you know,
Okay, hold on. I've got another
Meatball.
item.
Okay.
Meatball.
I would say meatball is a good like. I feel like meatball has climbed the ranks for me over the years of like prominence. Like I'll throw that on as like I think it's supplanted sausage as like the sidekick meat for pepperoni because you get pepperoni and another meat, and I think meatball has finally like hopped over sausage now. But not every place has meatballs. You gotta like look for it.
Yeah.
So here in the Twin Cities, there is a place called Punch Pizza, and you can kind of they have like their set pizzas that you can order. And I'm trying to find I have like an app or a note in the notes app that tells me like orders that I do. So like if I ever want to like do takeout, I'm like, oh, what do I normally get? Here's what I order. I order a margarita pizza with spicy salami, mushroom, goat cheese, and sun-dried tomatoes.
Ooh,
That
that
sounds
sounds good. I like all of that.
I'll
Fantastic.
take one of those, Ryan.
Have you eaten at Rectangle Pizza?
Oh yeah.
I like their shredder. It's pepperoni,
Oh, the hot honey, yeah.
pickled jalapeno, whipped Crybaby Craig's honey, pecorino romano, and red sauce. They also have a Betty White, which is ricotta, garlic butter, Oaxaca cheese,
Oaxaca
cheese,
Oaxaca?
I'm starving.
Oaxaca cheese.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up hot honey. That is I've recently got on the hot honey train in the
It's so
last
good.
year of like a pepperoni pizza with just like a drizzle of hot honey.
Oh, it's so
I'm
good.
embarrassed. I called it Oaxaca. I'm so embarrassed.
I mean, to be fair, it's not a word that.
Yeah, I'm
immediately
normally more
looks
on top of it.
pronounceable.
I think I panicked on air. Oaxaca. That makes so much more sense.
Yeah, it's like it means home.
It's like the first time I
appreciate the Lilo and Stitch reference.
Thank you, Brian.
the first time I ever
Where that word comes from, but okay.
it's wrong, but it's
the first time I ever saw quinoa spelled out, I pronounced it quinoa. And,
everyone does.
Yeah.
It's my favorite platformer from a few generations.
Yeah. Xbox 360 launch title quinoa. Oh no, that's what you might call it?
Quinoa
Elements of Power. Cameo. Elements of Power.
A game that whose beginning I have played like 50 times because there was this weird window where my daughter was really into it. She's like that was, you know how a kids well, I mean you guys may not know, but kids like to watch movies and stuff like that.
I have heard
Sure.
that. I've heard
movie
it.
over. She was like that with Cameo. She's like, yeah, I just want to play the beginning of Cameo. And I was like, all right. So I've played the beginning of Cameo entirely too many times.
What's her opinion of Cameo now?
I don't know. I don't think. Yeah, she's probably not a fan. I would think. Yeah. I should ask her.
Eric from Oakland writes in via email. Hi, Game Informers. I was listening to the most recent episode of the Game Informer show where y'all jokingly discussed buying a console by From Software, which you called the From Box, to buy Elden Ring 2. I would hope that they would call their console From Hardware. Anyways, thanks for the great work you do. I love listening to y'all every week.
Yeah,
That's
that's like a
that's
missed
a
joke
better-
opportunity.
Yeah, from hardware.
That's way better. Why didn't we think about that? Yeah. That's good, Eric.
We're bad at naming From Software consoles. It turns out. We'll
Yeah.
never get a job there.
Eric has to replace one of us on the show going forward.
Oh no. Not it.
Not it. Oh, not it.
Oh,
You got to touch your
crap.
nose. Oh, Marcus,
Marcus,
you
you're
didn't
out
touch your
I'll
nose.
see myself out.
Last question, then we'll all be seeing ourselves out. Troll Power on Discord asks, number one, do you like plants? Do you have plants at your desk? I like plants, but don't have any at my desk. And if you're like me, then we should both fix that. That's a good point.
You know-
I'm right there with you.
I have
have
this
it.
at my desk, which
Victory?
You
Oh,
think
Final
that's a plant? It did get cut out, unfortunately.
It cut out.
In the edit, actually.
Yeah.
They'll hear it in the edit.
Discord cut it out, but they'll hear it in the edit.
it plays
Yeah.
the victory fanfare from Final Fantasy.
Which is the scream that plants emit when you cut them. I've always been notoriously bad at like gardening. Like it used to be upsetting to me as a kid because we did like the science project. We had to like grow a sunflower and grow like different plants, and like mine would never grow, even though I did everything exactly like my classmates. And I would take it very personally. Like, what is wrong with me that mine isn't growing? So I had a chia pet that wouldn't grow. Like that's how bad I was. So I just never took it up since then. But honestly, playing Botany Manor is like mildly making me like I should maybe buy like a little pot because this seems like relaxing. Maybe I'm over my like. What's the opposite of a green thumb? Where like it just kills
Black thumb?
everything.
I
have that already. I'm there.
But I think it is actually called like a black thumb. People typically refer to it as.
Oh, so I'm the problem. I'm literally the problem. Gotcha. I'm just kidding.
God, Marcus.
I do like. I don't have any plans.
Push Alex into that hole. Just keep pushing him into it.
So
You know,
I don't have
like
any
the
plans
color.
on my desk.
Sorry, Brian. I'm interrupting. I'm sorry.
I don't have any plants at my desk because my desk is in a basement with very little natural light. You can see the only natural light in maybe, I don't know.
It's
right
right
here.
Yeah, we see it.
arcade cabinet.
Yeah.
So that is the only natural light that is down here. But I do have a succulent upstairs, and then I also, when the warm weather comes around in Minneapolis, I do a little bit of gardening outside. It's, potted gardening, but like I'll plant some flowers and just take care of them until the squirrels come and kill them.
Oh, you're doing it for them.
Really, I'm just giving them obstacle courses to rip apart. Basically like a punching dummy.
Well, now that Marcus has assassinated my character live on air, let's actually we'll do one more because there was
Real
multiples.
Quick, I did Google opposite of green thumb, and it's black thumb.
I know.
It seems messed
I don't
up.
have to
We
prove
should
myself.
fix that.
Well, it's the color of a rotten flower. When you like when the
It's
plant
black.
dies.
You can't get around it. It's black.
Yeah.
It just becomes like a husk of itself. It loses all its color. It's just
Without naming names, what's the silliest embargo terms you've come across?
Oh boy,
This wasn't.
this would have been a good one to prepare for. Honestly, I don't know if I have any.
There was that
There
one.
was one I'm wondering if we're thinking of the same one, Alex. I'll let you tell it.
Is the one where it was like 120 different lines that we had to initial every single line, or
Okay,
something
I was thinking
ridiculous
of a
like
different
that?
one, but that is a good one. I remember that. Yeah. I didn't have to do that, but
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
Brian did. Maybe I don't remember if I did. I think Brian had to.
The
there was
weirdest
one-
ones. Oh, go ahead, Brian. You
So-
probably have better ones than me. Yeah.
I mean, I specifically mentioned this as the reason that we didn't have a review for Super Mario Brothers Wonder at launch, at review embargo, and we held off until the game was available to everyone, is because it was so restrictive that we could not publish it without basically because we wrote the cover story like a month before the review, right? And the embargo was structured as such that we could talk about, I think, one additional level from what I already wrote about on the cover story. So we just opted to hold it until the game was publicly available, and we published it like right at midnight Eastern when the game went up on the eShop. That's the most extreme one I can think of, but there are other ones. And the only reason I mentioned that one specifically is because we actually said in our post, like, hey, the embargo was structured as such that we didn't feel like we could give our full review, so we're holding it off. I won't name names for some of these other ones, but like there were times where it's like you can do video of up to like 5 minutes, but the clips can't be longer than like 15 seconds each.
Yes.
Or something. So it was like we were like jumping from thing to thing, and it was a highly anticipated game, so like we did not want to like not do a video, but it was still, and we like specifically in the videos called it out like blank company embargoes, and like after like every single transition that we did, we had to like do that. But it was like literally like 15 seconds, I think, was like the cap that you could do for each consecutive clip, and then like to a total of like 3 or 5 minutes or something. It was just something ridiculous.
I don't know if I'd put up with that today these days.
Yeah.
I actually got around that recently. I won't say who, but I was like, I think I'll just do this when the game comes out, because then I can do whatever I want. It's out. Yeah, like I'm not doing that.
A new one. I mean, Brian, there was one that you did recently, which is I feel like I've seen a couple of times now. Is that you went to a Rebirth event and you could take photos of like being at the event, and you were like holding Cloud's Buster Sword, and it was like all these journalists were clearly at a Final Fantasy event, but then no one was allowed to say that they had touched Final Fantasy for like a month or something.
It was so we
weird.
got there, and we were there to play the game, and also, you know, Yoshinori Kitase and Naoki Hamaguchi, the producer and director respectively, were there. And so we were all like posting, they're like, yeah, you can post pictures of like the event, you can post like the photo ops, you can post like a picture of you with the director and producer and say that you went to a Final Fantasy VII Rebirth event, but there cannot be any pictures of like PlayStations in the background, and you cannot mention that you played the game until the embargo. And it was just a very strange embargo. I think it was like 2 weeks that I couldn't say that I played the game.
I won't name the name because I didn't work on the game, but I heard from other friends in the industry, so I'm not going to say which one. One of the major games that came out earlier this year, people did like a preview event in like September or something and couldn't write about the game until like late December or January. And like the lead up to the game, like all the marketing beats spoiled the majority of like all the preview content. It was just like a cluster.
Yeah, like why are we even here?
Although I will say I'm not gonna turn my nose up at a long lead time.
No, hey, if anything, like yeah,
sure.
I'd rather have that than, you know, you've got 2 days to write this.
Very odd.
I think one of the most consistently weird ones, and this applies to a lot of different publishers and studios, is whenever we get pre-briefed on like a showcase or something, so like a Summer Games Fest or Game Awards or whatever it is, and you know, we'll get a heads up like, hey, this trailer's going to be here, so we can write the story in advance. But then sometimes they'll have that condition that like, hey, you can't post this till like this amount of time, but then it's like after the show. And then you're like, wait, but it just aired. Can I just put it like when it's live? And then some places are like, oh, they say like, or when it airs, like either one, either wait till this time or when it airs. But then quite a few don't even have that. They're just like, no, 5 o'clock. But you're like, but it ended like 4:30. And you're like, nope, 5 o'clock. Like it's already out there.
Also,
I've always been baffled by that.
Also, and I know we're kind of poking fun at some of this stuff. Not really poking fun, just telling you how it is. Some of it is sometimes ridiculous. But like, you know, shout out to, you know, I have a lot of respect for, you know, people that work in PR. It's a hard job.
Oh, of course.
It is funny to sometimes get like people don't realize, I think, like maybe people newer in their career in PR, like you can't just like, I have to agree to an embargo. You can't just send me the information and say it's under embargo. Like I have to agree to it. Now we usually act in good faith, you know, and are like, okay, we're going to honor that. But, you know, just as a heads up, like that is like the, you know, not standard. I would
I've not
say.
legally signed anything saying I will.
I've not agreed to your embargo.
Assuming that I will.
Yeah.
But I have not actively, like, I have not responded saying like, okay.
Yeah.
You're just like, okay.
It does. Yeah. I suppose it makes our job easier when that does happen. It's like one less email. It's just, it's.
But yeah, as always, it's always a privilege to get stuff in advance.
Ever since I
always grateful.
Ever since I heard somebody on social media describe work emails as turn-based combat, I just get that out of my head. I'm just okay. That's one less turn. Whenever.
Right.
Hey,
I skip that turn.
Out of MP, just constantly out of MP.
Maybe I should count my blessings. Well, cool. That's a little bit inside baseball for you. Let's
look behind the scenes of Game Informer.
Yeah. Let's get out of here. If you enjoyed the show, thanks for watching. Appreciate you. If you didn't enjoy the show and you made it here, you should use your time better. If you made it to the end of the show, yeah.
Thanks for watching.
Don't forget to go and follow this crew here on social media. Follow Brian at Brian P. Shea. Follow Kyle at Kyle M. Hilliard. And follow Marcus at Marcus Stewart 7. Of course, you can find me at It's Van Aken. And that's going to do it for this week. We will see you next Thursday for another episode of the Game Informer Show. Have a good week, everybody. Goodbye.